coming in. So, dobry večer, good evening to our attendees. We're starting our webinar shortly. So tonight we have some more guests from the Canada Revenue Agency, and we're just going to wait a couple of minutes to have everybody join us. Почекаємо пару хвилин. Бачимо, що до нас понад 400 людей зареєструвалося, і ми зараз бачимо, що всі входять до нашого вебінару. This is the 7th, I believe, in our series of Expert Insights. Це сьомий вебінар Expert Інсайтів. Ми маємо серію цих доповідів, експертів на нашій веб-сторінці. Тут є список і відео всі, котрі були. І тоді слідуючі. Хочу пригадати, що цього тижня ми маємо двоє. So, нині 28-го. Тема є Державна допомога на дітей. 30-го четвер тема є житло. So можна тут зареєструватися. Тоді ми маємо в грудні про особисту безпеку і буде несподіванка ще в грудні додаткова тема. So I was just saying to everybody who's joining that on our website, ucc.ca/expert-insights, you can see all the videos of the previous webinars, and you can register for the ones that are upcoming. This week we have a double header on Thursday. Tonight we have this one on child benefit, and then on Thursday we have a topic on housing. And so we have one in December on personal safety, and then we will have a surprise topic coming just before Christmas for a little bit of a lighter theme. But again, that's ucc.ca/expert-insights. Я нині вечір хочу подякувати пане Дмитро Малик, що з нами є як мій співведучий. So thank you to Dmitro, who's here as our co-host. Наш формат, так як завжди, будемо мати презентацію. І якщо ви хочете мати запитання, прошу вживайте кнопку Q&A вниз вашого екрану. So you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Там можна написати питання, коментарі. І тоді пан Дмитро і я будемо дивитися разом з нашими гостями і побачимо, які ваші питання. При кінці презентації буде час, щоб відповісти. So at the end of the presentation, Dmitro will facilitate the Q&A section where we'll, with our guests, review the questions. We'll try to answer some of those questions during the presentation, but we'll try to answer some at the end as well. I think we are just 1 minute past the hour, після одної години, але майже 100 людей, almost 100 people joining us tonight. So, якщо ви хочете слухати по-українськи, вниз вашого екрану є кнопка інтерпретація, interpretation, це є глобус там. Ви можете змінити на канал українське. Пані Івана є наш перекладач нині вечором. So the presentation tonight will be in English, but there is Ukrainian interpretation available. If you click at the bottom of your screen into the Ukrainian language interpretation, Ivana will be your translator tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, Wendy, and Aaron, our guests from the Canada Revenue Agency, for tonight's presentation.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm just going to get my screen up there. All right. Hello and welcome. My name is Erin, and I work at the Canada Revenue Agency as a Senior CVITP and Benefit Outreach Officer. Joining me tonight are my colleagues Jamie and Wendy, and they will be monitoring the chat and answering any questions that are received.
Aaron, we don't see your screen yet.
Oh, you don't
it says
screen?
you've started screen sharing, but it doesn't pop up. Let's try it one more time.
Okay, let's try that one more time.
There we go.
Are we good
see
there?
it now.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
All right. So tonight we'll be talking about the Canada Child Benefit, which is also known as the CCB. Then we will discuss how to apply for the CCB, the Child Disability Benefit, and how to get your benefit payments on time. And before we get started, I would like to note that the information contained in this presentation is current as of today's date, November 28th, 2023, and is subject to change. If there is any discrepancy between the information provided within this presentation and information found on the canada.ca website, the website should be considered the most accurate and up-to-date information. So first, we will talk about your income. This includes income from all sources, or sometimes referred to as world income. Income from all sources is income that comes from both inside and outside of Canada. This could be employment or pension income, social assistance and workers' compensation benefits, or even investment income. The reason we ask for your income you earned before you became a resident of Canada is to help us calculate how much you would be eligible to receive in benefit and credit payments for which you qualify. You will not be taxed on the income earned from another country. And when filling out the Canada Child Benefit application, you will be asked to enter your income from all sources in Canadian dollars, the year you became a resident of Canada, and your income before you became a resident. If your spouse or common law partner is a non-resident of Canada during any part of the year, you must fill out Form CTB9, Canada Child Benefit Statement of Income, for each year or part of a year that they are a non-resident of Canada. You can also call 1-800-387-1193 to provide the income information. Now we will go over the Canada Child Benefit and how you can apply. For the remainder of this presentation, I will refer to the Canada Child Benefit as the CCB. The CCB is a tax-free monthly payment made to the primary caregiver of a child under 18 to help them with the cost of raising that child. A primary caregiver could be a parent, another family member, or someone else who is responsible for the care and upbringing of the child. The CRA calculates your payments based on the number and age of children in your care and your net family income from your and your spouse or common law partner's tax return. Applying for the CCB will also register the child for any related federal, provincial, or territorial programs. Here are the payment amounts that you may get based on your 2022 return. The amount of CCB you get is reduced if your family net income is more than $34,863. To be eligible for the CCB, you must meet all of the following conditions. Have or have applied for a social insurance number for yourself and your spouse or common law partner who resides in Canada. You must live with the child, and the child must be under 18 years of age. You must be primarily responsible for the care and upbringing of the child, and you must be a resident of Canada for tax purposes. You or your spouse or common law partner must also be one of the following: a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, a protected person, a temporary resident who has lived in Canada for the previous 18 months and who has a valid permit on the 19th month, or an individual who is registered or entitled to be registered under the Indian Act. You are primarily responsible for the care and upbringing of the child if you supervise the child's daily activities and needs, make sure the child's medical needs are met, and arrange for childcare when necessary. A primary caregiver can be the child's mother, father, grandparent, or other family member. You are not considered the person who is primarily responsible if the child is legally, physically, or financially maintained by a child welfare agency. If this is the case, the agency may receive the children's special allowance for their care. Please note that if you do not meet the above conditions or your permit has a remark stating does not confer status or does not confer temporary resident status, your application will only be used to register the children for the GST, HST credit, and other programs administered by the CRA. You will need to reapply for the CCB once you meet all of the conditions. The previous slide mentioned that one of the conditions to be eligible for the CCB is that you are a resident of Canada for tax purposes. You become a resident of Canada for income tax purposes when you establish significant ties in Canada. Usually, you establish these ties on the date you arrive in Canada. Significant residential ties to Canada can include a home in Canada, a spouse or common law partner in Canada, and dependents who move to Canada to live with you. Please note that your residency status for tax purposes is different than your immigration status. If you would like the CRA's opinion about your residency status, you can fill out Form NR74, Determination of Residency Status. You should apply for the CCB as soon as possible after your child is born, after a child starts to live with you, or as soon as you or your common law or partner or spouse meet the eligibility conditions. You should apply even if you share custody of a child or a child is living with you for a determined temporary period of time. Again, if you had previously applied for the CCB and were found not eligible, you will need to reapply once you meet the eligibility conditions. The CRA considers that a child is shared custody when the child lives alternatively with each parent between 40 and 60% of the time. For an example, a child could live 4 days with one parent and 3 days with the other, or 1 week with one person and the next week with the other, or it could be any other regular alternating cycle. Both people must be primarily responsible for the child's care and upbringing when the child lives with them, and each eligible person will get half of the payment that they would have received if the child lived with them full time. If your child lives with you and the other parent is in the same home, you are not considered a shared custody situation. You can also apply if a child lives with you for a determined temporary period of time, like over the summer holidays. There are 3 ways that you can apply for the CCB. You can use the automated benefits application, the CRA's My Account, or you can mail in Form RC66 Canada Child Benefit Application. Please note that starting November 20th, 2023, all individuals will be required to provide proof of birth when applying for the CCB. Families already receiving the CCB for their children will not be impacted by this change. Newcomers to Canada can apply for the CCB by filling out 2 forms and mailing them to the CRA. You can easily find these forms at canada.ca. The first form is the Canada Child Benefits Application RC66. You only have to apply once to get the CCB for a child, and if you have another child in the future, you'll have to send another application for them. The second form is the Status in Canada and Income Information for the Canada Child Benefits Application, Schedule RC 66 SCH. On the RC 66 SCH, you will have to include information about you and your spouse or common law partner's residency and citizenship and immigration statuses. You'll also need to provide your income from all sources, including income not reported on a Canadian tax return, even if it's zero. You may have to include information for up to 2 years, depending on the date you became a resident of Canada. And we will go over the forms in a bit more detail now. As mentioned in the previous slide, you can apply for the CCB by filling out Form RC66, Canada Child Benefits Application. You must provide proof of birth with your application, and this documentation should indicate the child's family name, given name, and their date of birth. Acceptable documents include a photocopy of any of the following documents that indicate the child's family name, given name, and date of birth, such as a birth certificate, a certified copy of birth registration, hospital records of birth, or the record of the attending physician, nurse, or midwife at the birth, an Indian status card, or a passport. Acceptable documents issued by Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada include a Canadian citizenship certificate, a permanent resident card, confirmation of permanent residence, a notice of decision issued by the Immigration and Refugee Board of Canada, a temporary resident permit. If you're a newcomer, you may also have to fill out and attach Form RC66 SCH. And for more information on this slide, for more information on this will be on the next slide. And when completed, you will mail in the forms to the CRA at the address listed on the form. It's important to note that even if you send Form RC66 to the CRA, you will still have to do your taxes to receive benefit payments. The CRA calculates your benefits based on the information that you enter on your tax return. If you're applying for the CCB as a newcomer or a Canadian returning to Canada after living abroad, you may have to complete Form RC66 SCH, Status in Canada and Income Information for the Canada Child Benefits application, in addition to the RC66 application. You and your spouse or common law partner must fill out Part A of Form RC66 SCH and attach it to Form RC66 if one of the following situations apply to either of you. You became a Canadian citizen in the last 12 months. You became a new resident or returned as a resident of Canada in the last 2 years. You are a permanent resident. You are a protected person. You are not a Canadian citizen and are an Indian within the meaning of the Indian Act. Or you are a temporary resident who has lived in Canada for the previous 18 months. If you are a temporary resident, you must ensure that your temporary resident permit is valid on the 19th month in order to receive any benefits and credits that you may be eligible for. If your permit is close to the expiry date and you receive a new permit with a new expiry date, you must let the CRA know as soon as possible by submitting a copy online through My Account or by mail. Otherwise, your benefits may be interrupted. The RC66 SCH captures your spouse or common law partner's income information if they were a non-resident of Canada during any part of the year. If your spouse or common law partner is still a non-resident of Canada for future years, You will then need to complete and send in Form CTB9, Income of Non-Resident Spouse or Common Law Partner for the Canada Child Benefit each year or part of a year that they are not a resident of Canada. What you need to fill out on the form and attach to your application depends on your status. The different statuses are defined in the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. If your child was born in Canada, after giving birth, you will have the opportunity to fill out the Automated Benefits Application, or the ABA for short. The ABA is a service offered in all provinces, the Northwest Territories, and the Yukon. The Territory of Nunavut will be offering this service in the near future. After you give birth, you will be able to complete your newborn's provincial and territorial birth registration. Be sure to provide your social insurance number to avoid delays in processing your application. With your consent, the information on your child's birth registration will be shared securely with the CRA. The CRA will use this information and info from your return from last year to determine if you are eligible for the CCB and to calculate your payments. And please note, if you do not give your consent, the information on the birth registration form will not be sent to the CRA. You will have to apply separately for child and family benefits by using either the Apply for Child Benefits option in My Account or by completing Form RC66 Canada Child Benefits Application. As mentioned previously, if you do not provide your SIN, it may result in a delay in processing your application or issuing payments. The CRA may contact you if more information is needed. And if you do not have a social insurance number, you can apply for one through Employment and Social Development Canada in person, by mail, or completing the SIN application form. If you have already filed a Canadian tax return and have registered for CRA's My Account, another way you can apply for the CCB is online using CRA's My Account. My Account is a secure portal that lets you view your personal income tax and benefit information and manage your individual tax affairs online on your own. You can track your refund, view or change your return, check your benefit and credit payments and statements, manage direct deposit, change your personal information, view any uncashed checks, view your CRA mail online, such as your notice of assessment, and more. If you are not already registered, you will have to do so by going to canada.ca/my-cra-account. And once you're registered, you would log into My Account, go to Apply for Child Benefits, confirm your contact information, your marital status, and your citizenship, and then add your child's name, gender, date and place of birth, and caregiver information. You will be prompted to attach all required documents, such as proof of birth and the RC66 SCH status in Canada and income information for the Canada Child's Benefit application. After you apply, you can also check the status of your application in My Account. Another benefit that you could be eligible for is the Child Disability Benefit, also known as the CDB. The CDB is a tax-free payment made to families who care for a child under the age of 18 who is eligible for the disability tax credit. A child is eligible for the disability tax credit when the CRA approves the form T2201, on which a medical practitioner has certified that the child has a severe and prolonged impairment in physical or mental functions that affects their ability to perform one or more of the basic activities of daily living. The CDB is paid monthly with the CCB to the person who receives the CCB for that child. For the period of July 2023 to June 2024, you may get up to $3,173 per year, which is $264.41 per month for each child who is eligible for the disability tax credit. The CDB is calculated based on the number of children for whom you receive the CCB. Once your benefit payments start, there are 3 things that you'll need to do to keep getting them. First, make sure you do your taxes for every year after you become a resident of Canada. The CRA can't calculate your benefit and credit payments without your tax information. Second, make sure that the CRA has your most recent personal information. Notify the CRA of any changes to your address, direct deposit information, marital status, and the number of children in your care. And third, respond as early as possible to any letters that you might get from the CRA. If you need some extra time, please contact us. As I just mentioned, the key to receiving your benefits and credits is doing your taxes on time. We know it's not a fun process and it can be a bit scary for some, but it's very important. Benefit and credit payments are calculated based on your family's net income, and this is why you need to do your taxes every year after you become a resident of Canada. If you have a spouse or common law partner, they also have to do their taxes. Even if you didn't earn any income in the year, we need this information. In Canada, the tax year is the same as the calendar year, from January to December, and tax returns are generally due by April 30th of the next year. As a newcomer to Canada, you don't have to do a tax return the year you become a resident of Canada. So if you became a resident of Canada in February 2022, you will do your first tax return in 2023. This tax return will cover the income that you received from February to December 2022. And you may be eligible to get your taxes done by a volunteer for free. The CRA works with community organizations and their volunteers to help eligible individuals file their taxes for free. The program is called the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, and in Quebec, it's known as the Income Tax Assistance Volunteer Program. You could be eligible if you have a modest income and a simple tax situation. Generally, a modest income is less than $35,000 for a single person and less than $45,000 for a couple. Your tax situation is simple if you don't have a small business or income from a rental property. Tax clinics are held all year. However, most clinics are offered in March and April. And for more information or to find a clinic near you, go to the web address on the screen. Now I will give you an overview of what to expect if the CRA contacts you, along with some tips to help you be scam smart by understanding and recognizing the different types of scams. Always be careful when you get a telephone call, a text message, an email, or mail from someone claiming to be from the CRA. This is especially true if it asks for personal information, such as the number on your credit card, bank account, or passport. These messages may insist that personal information is needed so that you can receive a refund or a benefit payment. They can also threaten legal consequences to scare you into paying a debt to the CRA that does not actually exist. There are also other communications that may urge taxpayers to visit a fake CRA website where you are asked to verify your identity by entering personal information. These are all scams, and you should never respond to these fraudulent communications or click on any of the links provided. You may think that you received a text message or an email from the CRA, but did you really? There may be times when the CRA will notify you by email when a new message or a document, such as a notice of assessment or reassessment, is available for you to view in secure CRA portals such as My Account, My Business Account, or Represent a Client. Or you may have subscribed to receive an email notification about an upcoming benefit payment. Please note that we will never ask you to provide personal information in return by email. However, the CRA may email you a link to a CRA webpage, form, or publication that you asked for during a telephone call. Also, the CRA will not use instant messaging, such as Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, to communicate with you about tax related issues under any circumstance. If you receive a text or an instant message claiming to be from the CRA, beware because it could be a scam. When in doubt, ask yourself why the CRA would need your personal information. Do I have a balance owing? Am I expecting more money from the CRA? Check and see if you have mail or an amount owing in my account. If you are unsure, contact the CRA. Never click on a link unless you're sure it's from the CRA, and when in doubt, delete. You can visit canada.ca/bescamsmart to learn more, and you can report a scam to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre at the web address or the phone number on your screen. If you suspect you may be the victim of fraud, you should contact your local police service. And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening tonight. And if there are any questions, we will be able to answer them now.
Okay, дякуємо. Thank you. Дмитро, over to you.
Okay, so I think we're ready for questions. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to be speaking in English, and I will let Ivana translate. We'll give some time. So first question that I've seen quite a lot from our participants here is regarding the retroactive payments. Are they going to be eligible for CCB payments from the date when they actually arrive in Canada, or the date when they became eligible to receive these payments?
Yeah, and sorry, I'll let you. I guess I'll let her translate that question, or maybe I can start. If you're receiving Canada Child Benefit after the 18 months,
Jamie, I think there's some issue.
Okay.
Ivana, ти можеш чути Jamie?
Can you hear me now,
Okay,
Dimitri?
go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So with retroactive payments, you would only receive payments for any amount of time after you were eligible. So there was another question that indicated if someone applied, maybe they were 20 months or 22 months in Canada. So retroactive payments would go back to the moment that they became eligible, but not before they became eligible. So there is that 18-month waiting period, and a person wouldn't be receiving Canada Child Benefit for those 18 months that they waited. I do know, though, that there have been other programs, and part of the QID, I believe, was to assist while people were waiting for, some of these other benefits to come into play, but the retroactivity wouldn't go back into those 18 months.
Okay, and we'll wait a minute. Okay, so the next question that I have is, again, there were a few questions. People often are confused whether these payments are paid to children or parents.
Mm-hmm.
And there is sometime in that misunderstanding whether a child born in Canada is eligible for these payments, even if parents haven't been here for 18 months.
So that's a two-part question, and I think the first part of it is the easy part to answer. The Canada Child Benefit is to be paid to those that are taking care of the children, and it's normally paid to. In most cases, it's considered that it is the mom who is the primary caregiver of the children. There would be cases where it would be, or it could be the dad. But the second part of your question is a little less clear for me. So I would never want to give someone a wrong answer, but there is a difference for, when a child is born in Canada, but when parents are here under the circumstances that a lot of Ukrainians have come here, I couldn't give you a certain answer on that. So I would, rather than give you the wrong answer, I would have everyone call 1-800-387-1193 to get the answer to that question. I certainly wouldn't want to give you the wrong answer. And by calling that number, you would receive the correct answer.
Okay, and we'll wait. Okay, thank you. There were a few questions regarding income and how the income is calculated, whether it's before taxes or after taxes. And I think there were questions regarding the completion of the forms, whereas there is a net profit, and then when CCB payment is calculated based on the declared income when you submit your annual return, right?
Mm-hmm. So I can explain that a little bit. So when we look at the slide, and there was one question that referenced the family net income. So just to give you a sense, the net income would be their income. We have what we call net income and gross income. So I mentioned in my example, if someone had a paycheck and they made $20 an hour times 40 hours a week, and it was $800 a week was their salary, that would be their gross income. But when they get their paycheck, instead of it being $800, it might be $600, it might be $500 and something, and that would be considered their net income because all of the deductions would be withdrawn from that. But when we're talking about income, your gross income would be your income that you earned less any deductions. But the family's net income is always going to be lower than, or almost every time that family net income is going to be lower than their gross income. So we're looking at the gross income. So just if you had a parent who had, let's say they made that $20,000 or $40,000 a year, once the taxes and all those things are reduced, it's going to be significantly less. And that's what comes out as their family net income. It's different for everyone. So if a person has childcare would reduce the gross income and would give you a lower net income. Medical expenses, if they had them, if they made donations to charitable organizations. So there's a number of things that you can do to reduce your income and get down to a lower net income. But all of our benefits are based on net income, which is almost every time, if not every time, it's going to be lower than their gross income. I hope that helps, Dimitri. Well, you're on mute, Dimitri. Sorry.
I'm sorry. There are a few questions whether people can apply in person, if there's any location that they can come and submit their application, in paper.
Yeah, so in person is not something that's available in Canada Revenue Agency offices, but what we do have is the paper form that someone would complete. You would send it to, you can download it from our website, or many local organizations would have a copy. But once you fill out that form, and within that form, it tells you what type of documents you need to attach. Obviously, you'd want to make sure that you keep your original copies of your documents, but you would send them to the tax center that is associated with your province. So I'll just give you for Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, Northwest Territories, Nunavut, Saskatchewan, or Yukon, it's the Winnipeg Tax Center. For New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Labrador, Nova Scotia, Ontario, or Prince Edward Island, it's the Sudbury Tax Center. And for Quebec, it's the Jonquière Tax Center. So the address is listed on the back. So there's not an ability to fill it out in person at a CRA office.
Thank you. Thank you, Ivana. There were two or three questions regarding, so people came to Canada in 2022. They left Canada for a few months or weeks. They came back. How this 18-month period is calculated?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because I think there's a difference there between if someone had left, maybe for a week or two to go back home to visit family. But if you're away for months, then I couldn't give you a firm answer on that, but I would expect that time period that you're away might need to be, you might need to make that time up. Again, I wouldn't want to give you a definite answer. So I would suggest that anyone that's in that situation, give us a call at 1-800-893-1193, 1-800-387-1193 for an answer on that. I had seen the question in the chat, and I had taken the question as though maybe someone had gone back for a shorter period of time. I think if it's a couple of months, I would certainly call and ask for clarification there.
Thank you.
Jamie, I just wanted to say somebody had
Mhm.
commented in the chat that for people who want to apply in person, settlement
Mhm.
services often help immigrants apply at their office.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And I was speaking more of CRA. Like we obviously
Yes.
don't have in-person service,
I'm
but
just
yes,
saying that for an
yeah,
information purposes
that's
only.
perfect.
So.
Yeah. And I think in every province, those organizations that support newcomers to Canada would certainly be there to help. Thanks, Wendy. It was an important mission on my part.
Thank you, Wendy. And Ivana, one minute, I'll let you translate. Okay, thank you, Ivana. I think there are a few other questions. So there were a few questions about people have been still waiting for their tax assessment, and even that they've qualified or they've lived here, for 18 months, they cannot receive any payments. What is your advice?
Well, anytime that someone has filed a tax return and has not received the notice of assessment, they definitely should call us. It's a different telephone number. It's 1-800-959-8281. They would be able to tell the individual what the status of their tax return is. There are some times, especially for the first tax return, that it may take a little bit longer. But if they haven't received any kind of information that suggests that it was completed, it would be really important for them to call us again, 1-800-959-8281, just to make sure that the tax return is on file. In the case where, for parents, especially when you're applying for benefits, whether it's GST, HST credit, or the child benefit, the income of both parents, whether or not they're both in the country, is really important. So it's possible that the CRA may be looking for information concerning the income of one of the parents, and maybe that's missing. But in any case, call us at that number 1-800-959-8281, and they'll be able to tell you exactly the status, or at least if your return has been received, and what what you can do, if anything, to speed it up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, thank you, Ivana. I'm looking at another question, and it's the date you became a resident of Canada. What is the date when you arrive in Canada, or it's a different date?
Yeah, and that one, I believe, is it on here? Resident of Canada for tax purposes. Yes, just one moment. So the date that you become a resident of Canada for tax purposes is not the same date necessarily that you arrived, but it is the date that you establish significant ties in Canada. As we mentioned earlier, significant ties to Canada would include a home in Canada, a spouse or common law partner in Canada, or dependents who move to Canada with you. So it could be the same day that you arrived, and sometimes it's not. But that date is different than the date that you landed, oftentimes. But what we're looking for is the date that you became a resident for tax purposes.
Thank you. Okay, just to clarify, because sometimes people think that they have to buy a house here in Canada to become a tax resident. Can you clarify what is home and what is family? Do they have to marry a Canadian, or both spouses arrived in Canada?
It's a good question. It's a good question, because when we say home in Canada, that doesn't necessarily mean a house or a two-story home, but it is, you're settling into a place to live. It's having an address in Canada. It's not, you're not here temporarily, like you have found a home and you're going to make that home for years, and that's specifically your intention. A spouse or common, so yeah, just the significant residential ties, a home in Canada, a spouse or common law partner in Canada, and dependents who move to Canada to live with you. So if you have anyone who arrives in Canada with children, the date that you arrive with your children is going to be that date that you met the significant residential ties. The one about a spouse or common law partner, no, it doesn't mean that you have to marry someone from Canada, but certainly not. But that one might be a little less clear.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Anna. I just wanted to clarify. I'll probably take one or two questions more, but
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of individual questions with individual circumstances and situations.
Mhm.
We won't
Yeah.
go into that. Sorry about that. But if you have questions, you can always call CRA. And
Yeah.
yeah, just Ivana, maybe
And
30 seconds.
Dimitro,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Did you want to add something?
Yes, I was going to say, Dimitro, that was a really good opportunity for us to clarify. So when we provide these presentations, we give general information about how to apply for the credits, how much you could receive, based on the income that you have, and we try to answer those questions. But when it comes to a person's individual situation, for one, we don't want to talk about someone's individual situation, in front of a group of people, obviously for those reasons. But we also don't want to give you a personalized answer, because oftentimes we could be wrong. And the last thing that I would want, or Aaron or Wendy would want, would be to be incorrect or to lead you down the wrong path. So we provide general answers, and we would always suggest that you call specifically around the Canada Child Benefit to give us a call at 1-800-387-1193. They are experts on that telephone line, and they will give you a definitive answer on your situation. And that's when we can't answer it, definitively, we'll always give you a telephone number for someone who can. So I hope that's acceptable to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. So one question that I have is here about the documentation that they have to submit along with those with RC66, like child benefit application. There is a list of documents or eligible documents to prove that child is in Canada and child or parents have significant ties with that child. And it says on the application that they're supposed to submit at least 3 documents proving that. So sometimes people cannot find those 3 documents because their children might not go to school yet or daycare, and they stay at home, for example.
Yeah. So that's really important, because there are also reasons that we're aware of that someone may have left their country, not with all of their documents, and that happens too. So we do have, we do ask for proof of birth, and you have to have a photocopy of one with the child's first name, last name, and date of birth. And that could be a birth certificate or birth registration, a hospital record, a passport, a record of landing or confirmation of permanent residence, citizenship certificate, notice of decision on a temporary residence permit, and a couple of others there. But in cases where you don't have that information, then other things may be considered, because we know there are instances where people may not have even had the ability to gather some of their documents. So the CRA will work with you. Ideally, you would have those documents that we're looking for, but obviously there are other things that we could probably accept if those aren't available to you.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Ivana. So there's going to be the last question here, and it's there's a question: are there any circumstances when CRA can ask to pay back those payments that people have received?
The only time that they might ask would be if one of the, so if there's two parents and maybe one of them is in the country and one is not in the country, everything is based on the income of both parents. So that's why we look for the income, even if one of the parents is outside the country. Only in the case where someone would have, kind of underreported their income would we make a correction to it. So if you had one spouse was living in Canada and they made $10,000 and a person was living in in Ukraine, and maybe fortunately that they were making a lot of money, but that wasn't reported at the time, then if it came to light that there was a difference in the income that was reported and what was actual, then at that point we recalculate. So as we looked at those charts, from 0 to 34,800 and something like that, you get the maximum. But as you go up in income, clearly we do give out a little bit less based on your income. Only in the case where we would recalculate. And someone had mentioned too, in the case where a couple separates, if a couple separates and they're doing 50-50, if they're splitting it equal times, then the Canada Child Benefit is just split in that same percentage. Otherwise, the money would be coming to the person who's primarily responsible for the child. Some really good questions, though, tonight.
Thank you, Jamie. Ivana? Okay, thank you, Ivana. Thank you, our CRA guests, for all the information that you have provided during this webinar. Igor, over to you. And Ivana, thank you very much for the translation.
Yes, thank you, Ivana. Excellent translation. I just wanted to thank the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, who helps us provide these webinars, Kanadsko-Ukrainska Fundacja. I wanted to just remind our guests that we have another webinar this week. We thank our friends from the CRA, but we're going to let them off the hook. We have another guest coming from Canadian Ukrainian Immigrant Aid Society, Irena Kalakaiko and Olena Shkarovska, who will be talking about housing, so again, if you have time to join us, this webinar will be is being recorded and will be posted to our website as well as our YouTube channel where you can watch it again. So thank you again, Jamie, Aaron, and Wendy, for your work with us to prepare for these presentations. I know there was a lot of good comments in the Q&A thanking you for the valuable information you're providing and for the work that you're doing to help all of our Ukrainian newcomers. So I think with that, we will wrap up for the night.
Thank you.
Dobranic. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.